let's just jump into the defensive lineman for this week. And I'm excited about this one. I'll start off with
You want to go over last week's?
Oh, you know what? Thank you, because I went on a really good month-long streak of not of remembering it, and now I finally forgot again. So last week, Dorrance Armstrong got a sack early in the game, was feeling good about it, and then that was his only tackle. So kind of puzzling for someone who's been fairly consistent, and he did get his sack for the day. So he didn't sink you, but definitely a disappointing day compared to what it could have been. Baron Browning, I was actually very excited about and very disappointed when he also only had one tackle. And Carl Granderson didn't exactly get off the right foot because Marcus Davenport ended up playing. So I wasn't anticipating Davenport playing. I thought he missed at least another week. So Granderson kind of stayed in his reserve role. So that was last week. We're going to try to do a lot better this week after I think we had a few good defensive lineman weeks leading up to this past one. So we're going to get back on track. I'm going to start off with Carl Lawson. Now, I'll admittedly say that this is a more of a lower floor play because the way the Jets use their defensive linemen, as it was evident in the draft, it was evident in the offseason, they rotate them. He gets around 50 to 60% snaps. He might be the starter, but he does rotate in very heavily with guys like Jermaine Johnson as well as John Franklin Myers and Michael Clemens and Bryce Huff. There's just a lot of guys there. But he faces Minnesota. It's a top 10 matchup for defensive ends. The Jets secondary right now is playing out of its mind, and it's allowing time for this pass rush to get home. And I mean, he's tied for 7th in QB knockdowns, despite the rotational role I just talked about. So I know the talent's there. I know he's a great player. He's rebounded incredibly well from his devastating injury last year. That was really disappointing because I thought he was going to take off last year. And we saw 2 weeks ago was the way to beat Minnesota is to get pressure on Kirk Cousins. He was pressured over 60% of the time on his dropbacks 2 weeks ago. So I think the Jets could do that this week. I think the Jets could get home to Kirk Cousins. And if someone's going to, it's going to be Carl Lawson. So I think it could be a solid 3 tackle for a loss and sack day for Carl Lawson, which will be a pretty good play off the waiver wire.
Yeah, and tied for 7th in QB knockdowns just suggests that he's got all the opportunity. You just like to see him maybe finish a few more plays. So even with the partial snap count, that's very encouraging, especially at this point in the season, considering kind of the lack of depth there is in waivers for your defensive linemen. So definitely like that pick there. I'm going to hop down to one that I put on there. And we're going to talk about Yannick. I hope I don't butcher this. Ngakoue, defensive end for the Indianapolis Colts.
I think it's Yannick Ngakoue. I could be wrong as well, but
however it is, he has been on a tear this year. He has pretty well solidified a low tackle floor, but at least to this point in the season, 12 weeks in, he's been involved in at least a sack 8 out of the 12 weeks so far. I think he was sitting at like 20th in sacks on the season overall. He's just outside the top 10. Oh, no, actually, I had it written down here. He's got 11 sacks disregard. I can't even read my own notes here. 8.5 sacks on the year. I think that's at right around 20. He's just staying heavily involved, man. Again, with the low tackle floor, you're not really looking to him to provide you a good floor. You're more looking for a big splash play guy. This last week, he just got a couple of sacks against Pittsburgh last night, didn't he?
Yes.
And so he's definitely on a tear and surprisingly available. Honestly, I've seen him all over Twitter and stuff, and I checked all of my leagues, and he's been sitting out there in all of them. So for those of you who have those leagues that reward those big plays, he's definitely somebody to take into considerations because he's up there competing. That's for sure.
Yeah, and the Steelers really made it easy on him last night. And shout out to, I hope I'm saying the right person because there's a bit of a IDP betting forum that I talked to a bit with Leo and Master IDP on Twitter. I believe it was our own at IDP tipster, Gary Van Dyke, who pointed out Yannick Ngakoue's sack line. I could be wrong. If it was someone else, I greatly apologize. But about his sack line, about him lining up against Dan Moore on the right side or left side, and he took advantage. So I really do think that could continue. He's a good player. He's been really stepping up since Kwity Paye went down. It was very needed for this Indianapolis unit to get a pass rush. So yeah, I mean, he has the upside, and he's establishing a floor. So, or he's not as much established a floor, but we know what he can do. And it's a nice thing based on matchups. So we kind of tossed out two names there that have a higher ceiling and guys that we think are going to get those sacks. I want to throw out a defensive tackle now. Somebody, and I forgot to switch the banner again. That was Yannick Ngakoue. You can see the spelling on YouTube right there. But this defensive tackle I'm talking about is Zach Sealer of the Miami Dolphins. This is a defensive tackle. He also has defensive end eligibility in some leagues, but I am more so interested when he has defensive tackle. He has 4 or more tackles in all but one of his games since week 7. That's a good little 5-week run right there. And he also has a tackle for a loss in all but one of his games since week 8. So right there, that's a lovely floor to have of a solid 8 to 10 points in most formats without even talking about any possibility of sacks or higher tackles than just 4. He's had a game with 7 in that span. So he faces San Francisco, and San Francisco likes to run the ball, if we don't know that already. And I like to play defensive tackles against run-heavy teams, against teams that know that they're going to attack the middle of the field, attack the line of scrimmage. So Zach Sealer seems like he's going to be a safe bet to hit his floor yet again. And if he's going to be, I think if he's a safe bet at his floor, there's a chance we see some more of a ceiling this week from him. I don't think we're going to get a sack. That's not really what he does. But tackles and tackles for a loss, I think they could be plenty this week, especially if McCaffrey's dealing with some knee tightness or knee soreness. Elijah Mitchell's now out. We're going to talk about the San Francisco 49ers in a bit with the running back segment. But no matter who it is, it shapes up well for Sealer to have a nice little day.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you pretty well hit the nail on the head. And against a run-heavy offense, he's going to see those running backs quite often running right up the middle. So you can only hope he just kind of takes advantage of all the opportunity and snags a number of tackles.